So on behalf of Agile Network India, I would like to welcome you. So I would request Geet Anuravi to just take it forward from here and start your session. Thank you.
Hello all, very good morning to you. Let me start off introducing myself. I'm a leadership and agile coach, and I have won two awards, the Leadership Agility Award from the World Agility Forum and Diversity and Inclusion Award from Jobs for Her. I strongly believe that every individual has great talent, and when nurtured, it will result in great outcomes for the individual and the organizations they are associated with. And this webinar is one such pursuit towards it. Let me start off with a story. Long ago, there was a king. He had everything, but then he was still not happy nor content. In his palace, there was this servant who was just having 2 square meals per day. He had a roof on his head and a loving family, but he was always happy. Even while doing his work, he was singing, naturally enjoying his work. The king was very surprised. He called his trusted advisor, asked him, "What's the matter? I think I have got everything, but still I'm not happy. And this servant does not have many things, but still he is happy." The trusted advisor says, "King, I think he has not joined the 99 club." And the king was surprised. "What's this 99 club?" The advisor said, "I'll actually show it to you." During the night, he went to the servant's house and at the doorstep, he actually put in a bag containing of 99 gold coins. Early next morning, the servant gets up and he's so surprised to see 99 gold coins at his doorstep. He counts and still he sees that there are only 99 coins. He cannot believe it. He goes around looking for that one missing coin, but then he cannot find it anywhere. That moment, he decides that he will work very, very hard. He will do all his might to get in one other gold coin so that his bag consists of 100 gold coins. Because he has decided, he starts working hard. Because he's working hard, not having fun, not spending time with his family, he becomes very grumpy. He stops singing, he stops being happy, he stops being content. The moral of the story is that, we can be actually happy with the needs. There are some needs which needs to be fulfilled, and we can happy with that. We can be happy with that. But then, whenever we are given something bigger and better, it's human mentality that we want to do more. And in the pursuit of getting to the wants, we lose our happiness. We cause unhappiness to people around us as well. The theory of wants was very well explained by Maslow. How many of you know Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Could I get some responses in the chat window, and Ajay will be able to tell me?
So Amar Prasthi says that basic needs and wants.
Very good. That's what Maslow's hierarchy actually says. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs is divided into 5 levels. The first one is a physiological level. The second one is the safety. Third one, social being, social belonging. Fourth one is esteem, and fifth one is self-actualization. And most of us actually know about this. So obviously, I'll not be talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs in its in the sense whatever has been presented, but I will actually try to extend it to remote teams. Because most of us, because of the COVID situations, are working remotely. At the physiological level, when we say that physiological needs to be satisfied for remote teams to be successful, what we mean by it is that each and every employee has got a quiet space to work. They are able to focus on their work. They've got basic minimum tools to perform their job. They've got a reasonable roster so that they get enough breaks, and most importantly, they've got time to actually have food, take sufficient rest. Those are the physiological needs for a remote team. When it comes to safety, is my work location safe? That's the first question people need to answer. The next one is, do we have laptop or desktop given by the company, or do we have VDIs installed on our system so that the company safety guidelines are followed? Do we have job security? Do we get regular pays? So these are some of the things which actually come in the safety level. The next one is the social belonging. In the social belonging, for the remote teams, it talks about, do we have tools to communicate with other remote workers? Am I having actually fun talking to people, doing my work? That's the social belongingness. The next level is the esteem level, which talks about, am I happy doing my work? Am I satisfied? Is my work being recognized by my peers, by my manager, etc.? The last level is the self-actualization level. And when we extend this to remote working teams, it is all about how comfortable am I working from home? Will I be able to advocate working from home to others, knowing fully well that there are some opportunities which can be used because of remote working? I think definitely one of the opportunity which all of us agree is not traveling through Bangalore traffic, right? So, but then there are other opportunities as well, which we will see it later. But then will we be able to take care of those opportunities? Then can I actually solve problems creatively even when I'm working remotely? So these are some of the things which we can do in order to extend Maslow's hierarchy of needs to remote working. Amy Edmondson defines psychological safety as a climate in which people are comfortable in expressing and being themselves. If that's the definition of psychological safety, could we see how we, when I say we, it includes the organization, it includes the manager, it includes the team members or the teams where we are working in, and individuals. How can we foster psychologically safe remote teams? But before I actually start discussing this, could you actually type on the chat, what's the difference between a psychologically safe team or psychological safety and trust? What's the main difference between psychological safety and trust?
Yes. So Karthikeyan says that one complements the other. Anil Goswami is saying trust is value. Anu Joseph is saying safety leads to trust. Okay. And we have a couple of them.
Okay. So the most important difference between psychological safety and trust is, when you're talking about psychological safety, it focuses on a belief about a group norm, how people actually see it, a group of people see it, while trust focuses on a belief from one person to another person. So while psychological safety is for a group of people, trust is always one-on-one. So with that understanding of psychological safety, let's see how how different roles can actually help foster psychological safety. At the core, let's start off with the organization. I think these COVID times have given us good case studies because a lot of teams started working remotely at a very short span of time. And in fact, there is a study done by Great Places to Work, who have looked at these certified companies and have actually charted some of the things which are listed in the slide as well. The first and foremost thing which the organization will have to do is communication, right? They have to communicate, rather over communicate, especially when people are remotely working. So that communication can be in the form of vision, roadmaps, OKRs, updates, etc. So Arne Sorensen, CEO of Marriott, sent his video update to all his employees. So you need not have to look for your traditional ways of communication just by actually having people physically present in a big room, or your email communication. So you can actually use videos and other stuffs as well. And during the crisis period, and also when people are actually working remotely otherwise as well, it's very, very important for the leaders to give updates. That gives confidence to the employees, and also it prevents misinformation. So when the organization is actually doing that communication, what will be the role of a manager or a people leader? The people leader is to actually has to set up a clear prioritized goals. And similarly, the teams will have to respect and support each other. So it is an outcome, it's a team outcome which people are trying to achieve, and hence the team will have to support each other. And at an individual level, it's very, very important for each one of us to understand the big picture. While the organization can actually share their views, manager can talk about their goals, team members, each other can say, we will support you. Unless we as individuals want to understand, clarify big picture and contribute, remote teams will not be able to work successfully. The next thing which we have seen in these times is support provisioning of basic infrastructure to work from home. You must have heard, when we actually transitioned to remote ways of working, a lot of companies actually gave desktops, even infrastructure like table, furniture, table, chair, etc. They were all shipped on to the employee's location. Some other companies gave a one-time benefit so that people can actually buy these infrastructure and able to contribute to the vision and purpose of the company. So that's how an organization actually support people. At a manager level or a people leader level, you need to provide autonomy. So we always say that, in the physical office, sometimes a manager actually stands, behind you and keep watching you at the work, whatever you're doing. So obviously that opportunity is surely not there when you're working in remote teams. But then we've also seen that some of the managers keep asking for updates, keep committing for deadlines without asking you. So those are some of the behaviors for sure which you need to get rid of. And you provide autonomy to the team so that they can decide how to work, where to work, and then creatively complete the work as well. At the team level, you need to communicate openly and frequently. When we are talking about openly and frequently, because we are working from home, sometimes there is communication gap. A simple thing can be that, pulling in Jira requests, right? So there are quite a lot of teams who would pull in the work, but then who would not update the Jira ticket. But then someone else might pick up that same ticket, and there's quite a lot of rework which is happening because two teams have actually picked up the same work, and there is time loss as well. So you need to follow processes, you need to communicate openly and frequently, and it is very, very critical. And also it says that, according to studies, it says that lack of social interaction will increase health risk, which is almost equal to having 15 cigarettes per day. So that's the kind of impact it can have. So while there is an impact on the work you're doing, if you don't communicate openly and frequently, there is an impact on personal health as well. At an individual level, try hard to actually know your colleagues, try to know their families. So it's a good opportunity for all of us We see that sometimes kids appear when we are having a video conversation. Spouse appears. So all these are good. Once you connect at the personal level, your jobs become more easier. You are able to empathize with your colleagues better. The third one, which most of the companies are doing right now or successfully doing right now, is establishing common work policies. Because of remote working and also because of the GTD model, employees are actually sitting all around the world. So what are some of the things which you can do? Do you have a specific time frame which all of them will have to check in, irrespective of the geographies? What kind of equal opportunity policies do you have? I know of a company, I think 2 weeks back, they came up with additional top-up insurance. That's how they wanted to take care of their employees throughout the world, because they thought that because of the COVID situation, the initial policy people had was not enough. So that's a top-up option which was given, right? So that fosters psychological safety. So at different points in time, people need different things, right? While at one point in time, pay becomes your, as an employee, you need to get a lot of pay for the work you do. At points like this, maybe it is the insurance which is very, very critical. So understanding what is important and ensuring that the policies rolled out, people are able to understand those policies and make advantage of the policies is critical. At a manager level, you need to have regular one-on-ones. While we were actually working physically, we would actually have these kind of conversations sometimes over coffee, but here it may not be easy. So actually booking in time for having one-on-ones and talking about not only what you have performed for the organization, but also trying to understand what the employee is going through is important. In one of the scenarios, the employee's family member was unwell because of COVID, and the manager went beyond his duties to get a bed for him. He called up many of the hospitals and ensured that a bed is arranged for him. While it might look like trivial, but at this point in time, for the employee to be feeling nice and to be able to contribute to the work he has been assigned, this becomes critical. So those kind of one-on-ones will ensure that you understand what the employee is going through and how you as a manager can also support employees. And obviously work is important. As team members, we need to provide open, honest, real-time constructive feedback. And at an individual level, you need to reflect and learn. Any amount of feedback coming to you, if you're not reflecting, if you're not taking the areas of improvement and making changes in yourself and learning through it, it will not add value. These big companies, or I don't call them as big companies, but great companies who are enabling psychological safety in remote teams are also measuring psychological safety. While measurement is important, what is also important is what are some of the steps you're taking as an organization to improve psychological safety, and are you transparent about it? Are you able to communicate to your employees that these are the steps taken and this is what has either improved or not improved, and what other steps are you taking? That comes at an organization level. And at a manager level, you need to model the desired behaviors, walk the talk, be vulnerable. At team level, we have actually brought in this practice of having pre-meeting check-ins where we go round robin and ask people how they are feeling today. There is hardly any space between work and personal life these days. Many are not able to go out of their houses. So it's very, very important to understand how the other person is feeling and how you can help him feel better. And then most importantly, be inclusive in your communication, not ignore any team member. We always have that kind of people where one person is always talking, the other person is silent. How can you be inclusive? Those are some of the things which team members can do it. And at an individual level, which is very, very important, right? So you need to be present whenever you're having these meetings. You need to bring in your whole self. So if you are unwell, you need to, if you're unwell, you are unwell, right? So you're logging into a call being unwell. So you need to talk about it and then see how things can be improved, how your colleagues can foster your this thing there. So that's about psychological safety, and that's how different roles can help build psychological safety in remote teams. There was a research done at Google, and they called it as Project Aristotle. And they actually did 2 years of study. They studied high performance teams, and they wanted to know what were some of the behaviors of high performance teams. And clearly what came out was the psychological safety. There were actually 5 parameters which came out: dependability, structure, clarity, impact, and psychological safety. But psychological safety was the foundation for creating high performing teams. So if that's the case, if that's the kind of findings from Google, let's see what are some of the behaviors of a high performing team. High performing teams clearly understand their purpose. They understand what's the purpose of the company, what's the purpose of their project or their sprint, for example, if you're working in Scrum teams, and how are you contributing it. They are able to speak up. When I say speak up, they are able to share their ideas and opinions, feeling very confident that it will be heard and recognized. They respectfully challenge each other, and the concept of agree to disagree comes in here as well, right? So when you are challenging, it is not to corner the other people or to say that you're better than them. It is only to exchange thoughts, to figure out if there is a better outcome which you can provide it to the end user. They are able to actually seek for help without thinking that somebody else will think they do not know anything. So that open communication channels are available. They're able to own up their mistakes. They're able to experiment. They're able to fail. So I think the company organizations also will have to provide the fail-safe environment in order to own up mistakes. They are able to build learning culture. It is not about one person, right? I'm able to uphold and take along with me the other people as well. So I'm openly sharing my knowledge, and similarly the other people on the team are also able to share knowledge. So that's about building learning culture. They're able to give open and honest feedback. And the last one is they're able to celebrate success by recognizing each other. So it's always not the manager, it's not always the organization who will have to recognize. A lot of things needs to come from the peer community itself. And wherever the team, whichever team is able to actually showcase these behaviors, they are on the way to becoming high performing teams. So there is this one is better than one concept. So obviously I've not gone wrong in mathematics here. This is taken from the movie, The Avengers. I do not know how many of you have watched this movie, right? In this movie, there's this Iron Man, Captain America, the Hulk, and the Thor. There are 5 people here. But what is important is that we already know by our experience, we know that we don't want one person to become a hero in the team. But this movie says that I don't want 5 individual people as well. What we need in order to become high performing teams is that 5 people working together as a team, and that's what creates magic. And this movie actually brings in that, and the hard part obviously is putting your egos aside, trusting each other, and acting as a team. But if you have not watched this, please do watch this movie. It's really nice. So now that we have understood that psychologically safe teams are also high performing teams, and in order to become high performing teams, there is no need for you to be physically present in a location, in the same location. You can remotely work. Let's look at what are some of the stats which are available for remote working. I've taken these numbers from Gallup, Forbes, Flex Jobs, etc. So, according to these, they say that the job flexibility obviously increases engagement. If engagement is increased, then there is 41% lower absenteeism, 40% fewer quality defects, 21% higher profitability. According to another report, 39% of work from home employees complete tasks faster than those in fixed workplaces. One more study says 80% of remote workers reported higher morale. 82% said it helped lower their stress levels. And obviously, this was another company which did the survey. According to that, it was 69% reported lower absenteeism. And last but not the least, Upwork's Future Workforce Report predicts that 73% of all teams will have remote workers by 2028. What this means is that remote working is here to stay. So just after COVID, it is not that all of us will get back to work. There will be many of us who will be working from home, which also means that we need to follow 4 C's, which means the connection, communication, collaboration, and continuity to foster psychologically safe teams to bring in high performance. With that, I think I'm done with the slides. Do you have any questions?
Hi, Anu. I'll help you with the questions of the participants.
Sure. Thank you so much.
So there are some questions listed here. So the first question is from Raj Gupta. Why would you expect it to change from the current system that you are using for performance discussion and evaluation?
We're not talking about changing the performance system. For example, I do know that in some of the companies, it's very much manager-led. What we are talking about is maybe having a 360-degree view. When we talk about a 360-degree view, we are talking about collecting feedback from your peers, your stakeholders, and then looking at your appraisal. But if your current ways are working really well, there is no need to change the performance appraisal per se. It is only about how are you able to talk through that when you're remotely working. That becomes very critical.
Okay, so next question is from Anil Goswami. How to sustain remote teams for long time?
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
How to sustain remote team for a long time?
Correct. So I think when I said here, right, the 4 C's, connection, communication, collaboration, and continuity. Continuity is very, very important, right? So today we might be working very well. We might be high performance team. High performance might get impacted if a new member gets added to the team because his ways of working may not be the way others have been working till that time. It might get impacted because of issues like COVID or any other stuff, right? So it is continuity continuously monitoring, continuously evaluating, continuously taking steps. So there is no golden rule that, today you're high performing and I can actually say that in the coming 1 year, you will still be high performing teams.
Okay, so next is from Chandrasekhar. I get motivated by meeting managers, peers, and leads, but now remote working looks like a handicap. Kindly advise.
Agree, completely agree. And I think many of us are in this position, right? So we used to have water cooler talks, we used to have coffee sessions, which we are completely missing now. And that's where we are actually talking about using technology and talking to the teams. Some of the companies have Skype, Teams, various communication channels have been opened up. That apart from what the company provides, you'll have to make that step to call up all your peers, and then talk to them, including managers. As a practice, for example, what I do, which I was not doing it previously, is that every week I will call up at least 2 to 3 of my friends, and not necessarily I'm talking about work, and not necessarily they are part of my team. I talk to them and then I feel really refreshed. So that's the kind of connection which I'm building. That's a networking opportunity as well, trying to know that person. And also it gives me confidence that the other person is also in the same boat. Sometimes just knowing that all of us in the same are in the same boat would help. So you will have to take the step of talking to your manager. If your manager has not already set up one-on-one conversations with you, you proactively set up, discuss what is that which is concerning you. Does that help?
He can only tell.
Yeah, I know.
So we can go to next question. Next is from Amar Pusti. He's asking how remote teams can work more efficiently than local teams.
How remote teams, according to a lot of studies which has been done, remote teams are more productive. So during these days of COVID, I do know that you've not got time to actually go out. You're not able to spend time with families and friends. But what we've seen is that if it comes to normalcy, and if it's normally under normal circumstances, you are remotely working, you get additional time to take care of your hobbies, take care of your families, take care of your other needs. Because you are able to take care of those things and you're not spending a lot of time in the traffic, you are able to automatically get motivated. And I think one of those, this thing I told you, right? 39% work from home employees complete tasks faster than those in fixed workplaces. So these are all stats which are already available. So it's quite proven there, but not necessarily during these COVID situations.
Thank you, Anu. Remaining questions we'll take offline. So I request participants to just post over the LinkedIn and tag hash ANI, and we'll get the answers for you. So thank you so much, Anu. Wonderful presentation. A great learning from your side.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you all.